Slipshod here, and today I'm going to be looking at my Black Ops 3 bindings. Obviously, these bindings are very similar to my Call of Duty 2 bindings, so I'm not going to go into it in any great detail, but I'll have a look at the more interesting stuff. And to start with, I will look at the left trigger. Obviously, it's set up the same as it is in Call of Duty 2, well, at least for myself, with firing the weapon being the full pull action and aim down sight being the soft pull action, along with the soft pull trigger style as hip fire normal. I may end up changing that to hip fire aggressive soon, but at the moment I'm finding hip fire normal to be pretty good. It seems to respond well whenever I need to do a certain action, so I'll leave it for now. Obviously the soft pull point I've dropped down a little bit even from the Call of Duty 2 bindings. It's just so it's a bit more responsive, but that really comes down to personal preference. Then next up, I'll have a look. Okay, well, as you'll see, the D-pad and the button pad, the ABXY buttons, I've got them left as X input buttons, and that's only because, well, the button pad doesn't ever get used because, as you can see, I've got the equivalent actions mapped out onto the back paddles and to the right trigger, and then the D-pad, the only option on that I'll be using is the D-pad right, which I could map to the equivalent on a keyboard anyway, but it doesn't really matter because I don't use it that much. And you will also find if you try it, you can get problems if you try and use the mouse aiming system whilst having all of the other options as X input buttons. What will happen is you get the reticle trying to zoom in and out at the same time. It's really weird because it will let you have the two different sets of bindings together, but it kind of goes kicking and screaming whilst it's doing it. So you get the reticle, but then it tries to zoom out to the hip fire mode, and it constantly does that. And you may notice it in the first match of gameplay video that I have coming up after this. Although through the editing you may not notice it as much, but it's really annoying when you're actually trying to play the game. So that's something to be aware of. That's why I have almost everything else set up as keyboard bindings. And then to take a look at the left analog stick, or the only analog stick in this case, like I said, as a directional pad, and in order to get this to work you will need it as radial with overlap because analog emulation doesn't work with Black Ops 3. I've tried it and I can't get it to do it properly, but I found that radial with overlap does, and they function exactly the same, so it doesn't matter. Obviously the click action is the same as it would be on the left analog stick on the default gamepad options in the game anyway. I've got the dead zone quite low, just personal preference really. I'm not getting stick drift with it that low, so it's fine. We'll see, haven't changed the advanced settings, so don't need to look too much into that. Obviously I have it set as mouse. If you want target assist in the game, which is where the reticle slows down when it's in the vicinity of an enemy, then you'll need to use mouse joystick or joystick camera to achieve that. But I prefer not to be limited by the sensitivity you can get with a joystick option, so I have it set as a mouse. It's also more accurate, I find, but it's up to personal preference. Sensitivity very high on this, but in game it's like 3.2 on mouse sensitivity, so it kind of balances itself out. The rotation I have it set up for as close to my actual thumb like swipes as I can get it, so obviously for you'd have to change it. Well, not necessarily, but you may have to. Obviously trackball mode on, the most useful setting on the mouse option I find. Trackball friction low, it's definitely needed to be low, to be honest. Or as you can see, I've got friction vertical scale all the way up. I mean, even then, and combined with this sensitivity vertical scale, I still find that if it spins for too long, it will still end up almost always looking at the sky or looking at the floor. but there's not really much I can do about that because I've already set it up to maximum friction. So yeah, and haptics intensity high, trust me, you'll want that high. It feels wrong the first few times you have it as that, but you get used to it after a while. And in fact, now it doesn't actually feel like it's enough. But oh yeah, I don't have trigger press mouse dampening on this game either because I don't need it. Smoothing all the way down, and in game I don't have any filtering either. It's just so obviously when you're playing competitive games you don't want any input lag at all, or at least have it as low as you can get it. For the double tap binding, I've got the specialist ability, but I may change that at some point. I don't really use it that much at the moment anyway, so it doesn't matter. But I did have to set the double tap duration quite far down because I found that sometimes I was accidentally activating it whilst doing trackball swipes. So yeah, so just something to be aware of. Obviously, I have the edge spin radius and edge spin speed set up, but I don't ever get to that far to the edge of the controller anyway, so it doesn't matter. It's kind of irrelevant, really. And then lastly, I have the right trigger. Obviously, the trigger analog output is off. You don't want that on, even if you're going to map the soft pull action to one of the analog triggers, because what happens is no matter what, it will always activate that trigger, even if you set the soft pull action as that and not had the full pull action on, for example. So really just avoid that if you're going to use either of the full pull actions or soft pull actions anyway. As you can see, this is opposite to what I have on Call of Duty 2. That's just because jumping in this game is a lot more important than drop shotting, although sliding, to be fair, is quite important, but obviously it's not too difficult, and with hipfire normal it's very easy to rapidly activate the slide anyway, along with the soft pull point quite low as well. So other than that, I think that is it. And in my gameplay videos there is one bit where Shadowplay unfortunately decided that it was going to mess up the encoding process on my video. So in the second gameplay video there's about 10 seconds that you'll see where it kind of lags out a bit and the sound goes a bit screwy. I only included what's in this video because it's relevant to, you know, gameplay and whatnot, but obviously you managed to miss most of it. But obviously it's just something to be aware of. You know, it's not something that I can change post-process, and it's not YouTube screwing around, so just something to be aware of. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the video.
inbound. Be advised, hostile care package overhead. Hostile UAV spotted. Hostile Guardian in your AO. Get against the wall. Press your advantage. UAV inbound. Friendly Hellstorm inbound. Friendly counter UAV inbound. Friendly UAV inbound.
HCXD, ready for tasking.
Friendly care package incoming.
HCXD.
UAV inbound. You made the entire CDP proud.